Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Coach Chelsey Rae, founder of the Embrace Your Strength Coaching Academy, and today we're talking about a topic that's gotten a lot of attention lately, especially among women in their 40s and 50s, and that's meal timing and intermittent fasting. Now, before we dive in, tell me in the chat, who here has tried intermittent fasting before? Yeah, okay. Got a few ladies. Yep, I figured. So most women have either tried it or they've thought about trying it because it's everywhere, right? And it can be super tempting, right? Like that promise of fat loss, better focus, and more energy just by skipping breakfast. But here's the thing. Intermittent fasting can absolutely be a useful tool, but it is not magic, ladies, okay? Especially in perimenopause and menopause, the way your body responds to fasting is very different than how a 25-year-old's body would, okay? So in this training, I'm going to break down what's really happening behind the scenes, hormonally and metabolically, when you fast. So we're going to look at how fasting impacts your hormones like insulin, cortisol, ghrelin, leptin, and estrogen, why timing your meals can be just as important as what you eat, how to recognize if fasting is hurting more than helping, meal timing around your exercise routine, strength training routine, and how to find balance that supports your metabolism, your muscle, and your mood. Sound good? Perfect. And before we go any further, quick disclaimer, okay? This is not about bashing fasting, okay? The purpose of this is about understanding your unique physiology as a woman in midlife so that you can use the right tools at the right time for the right reasons, okay? So let's start with why so many women are drawn to fasting in the first place. Well, most women I work with, maybe like you, have been dieting for decades. You've tried low carb, low fat, keto, you've done the shakes, the cleanses, and nothing really sticks. So when fasting comes along and says, you don't have to count calories, you can just eat in a smaller window, right? It feels like freedom, right? Like free to do what I want to do, eat the way I want to eat. But here's what I want you to hear. Fasting doesn't fix a broken metabolism. It just hides some of the symptoms for a little bit. And when you shorten your eating window, of course you eat fewer calories, but that's part of why it works at first. But when your hormones are shifting, especially estrogen and progesterone, your stress tolerance, your blood sugar stability, and your metabolic flexibility are changing too. So what happens? Well, at first you might lose a few pounds, but then your energy crashes mid-morning. You get really irritable and anxious. You start craving sugar. Your sleep tanks too. And you start thinking, wait, what's wrong with me? This worked for my girlfriend. Like, why is it working for me? Does that sound familiar? Yeah. Drop a hands up if that's ever been you in the comments. Yeah. It worked for my girlfriend. Why isn't it working for me? That's frustrating, right? And it's not that you failed at fasting, it's that fasting wasn't built for your current hormonal landscape. So let's unpack what's actually happening hormonally during perimenopause and menopause, because this is where everything changes. So number one, let's talk about insulin. So this is your blood sugar manager. Insulin's job is to shuffle glucose into your cells for energy. And when estrogen is steady, insulin sensitivity is usually pretty good. But as estrogen kind of fluctuates, it does like wildly in perimenopause, right? Up, down, up, down. Your insulin response becomes less predictable. And that means your blood sugar can swing a lot more easily, especially if you go long periods without eating. So if you're fasting for, say, 16 hours and your hormones are already making your blood sugar unstable, guess what happens? Well, your body compensates with cortisol. So number two hormone I want to talk about is cortisol. That's your stress hormone. So it helps you helps keep you awake and alert in the morning. It also releases that stored glucose when your blood sugar dips too low. So if you skip breakfast and your body is like, uh-oh, we're low on fuel, cortisol steps in to give it some help. And that's fine sometimes, right? Cortisol has a natural morning spike, but when fasting becomes more chronic, especially if you're pairing it with really hard workouts, coffee on an empty stomach, and poor sleep, your cortisol stays elevated all day long. And that leads to more belly fat storage, muscle loss, poor sleep, mood swings, and ironically, that's all the exact opposite of what we're trying to achieve as fasting, right? All right. The third hormones I want to talk about are ghrelin and leptin. And so these are your hunger and your fullness hormones. So ghrelin is your like sending the signal to I'm hungry, right? And leptin is your like I'm full hormone. So during perimenopause, ghrelin levels can rise and leptin signaling can get weaker, if you will. So meaning you feel hungrier and it takes longer to feel satisfied. And so when you fast too long, ghrelin spikes even higher, which can trigger that overeating once you finally break your fast. Have you ever skipped breakfast and then found yourself like standing in front of the pantry at like 3 p.m. like, why can't I stop snacking, right? That's ghrelin at work. So the next two I want to talk about are estrogen and progesterone. Okay, so these are big players. So estrogen supports insulin sensitivity, serotonin, which is your happy hormone, and muscle maintenance. Progesterone helps calm the nervous system. It supports our sleep. It balances estrogen's effects. So as these begin to decline or fluctuate, your ability to tolerate long fasts or stress or calorie restriction changes dramatically. Okay, so estrogen drop usually equals less muscle plus less insulin control. And progesterone drop equals less resilience to stress. So when you pair these hormonal shifts with fasting, your body interprets it as more stress, not a fat loss opportunity. So tell me in the chat, did you know that your hormones affected how your body handles fasting? Most women don't because, well, no one tells them this, right? So now let's talk about when you eat, because this is where the real gold is, okay? Your body runs on a 24-hour clock called your circadian rhythm. And this controls your sleep-wake cycles, your hormone release, your digestion, even your ability to burn fat. So cortisol naturally rises in the morning, helping you to wake up. And insulin sensitivity is highest earlier in the day, so meaning your body handles carbohydrates better. By evening, that insulin sensitivity begins to drop and your metabolism is preparing for rest. So what does that mean for fasting? Well, if you're skipping breakfast and pushing your first meal to noon, you're missing that window where your metabolism actually wants to be more active. And studies show that women who eat more of their calories earlier in the day, what's called like early time restricted feeding, experience better blood sugar control, less hunger, improved energy, better sleep. So instead of skipping breakfast, you might do better eating breakfast and lunch and then finishing dinner earlier, say around 6 or 7 p.m. And that's still a 12-hour fast overnight, right? Which supports your circadian rhythm and digestive recovery without taking your cortisol or your blood sugar. Now, this is where it gets really interesting because I'm not saying fasting is bad, okay? I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying you need to understand when it becomes too much, okay? When women go longer than 14 to 16 hours without food, especially in perimenopause, a few things tend to happen. Number one, cortisol spikes. Okay, we already covered this, but prolonged fasting is a stressor. Your body releases cortisol to keep that blood sugar up. Number two, your thyroid slows. So low energy intake signals your thyroid to conserve its fuel. Number three, muscle breakdown increases. So without amino acids from food, your body starts breaking down and using muscle tissue for energy. Not what we want. Number four is appetite rebounds. That evening overeating, it starts to kick in and kicks in hard, right? So the more muscle you lose, the slower your metabolism becomes. And that's why I always tell my clients, you do not have a fat loss problem, you have a muscle retention problem, because muscle is the tissue that keeps your metabolism strong. It supports our insulin sensitivity and it helps you to burn calories at rest. So if fasting is costing you muscle, it's costing you your metabolism. So who here feels like no matter what you do, it's harder to keep muscle on now than it used to be? Yes. Yeah, exactly. That's because your hormonal environment has changed. Okay. It's not your willpower. So let's look at what the science actually shows about intermittent fasting in women, not men, not mice, but in women. Okay. So most of the original fasting research was done on young, healthy men. Their hormonal systems are completely different if we haven't noticed, right? They don't experience monthly or menopausal fluctuations. Lucky them, right? But newer research focusing on women tells us a really different story. It tells us that fasting improved metabolic health markers primarily through calorie reduction, not through fasting itself. Studies also showed that women who ate earlier in the day had better glucose control than those who ate late. Another study found that alternate day fasting led to increased feelings of fatigue and irritability in women. And another study showed that early time restricted feeding improved insulin sensitivity, blood pressure, and oxidative stress without calorie restriction. And I can share these sources and where I got this research from in the comments below. But in short, women benefit from structured eating windows, but not prolonged fasting. That sweet spot tends to be about 12 to 13 hours overnight, not 16 to 18. So that means you can absolutely support your metabolism by simply not grazing all night and giving your body the time it needs to rest and recover, and eating balanced meals during your active hours. So let's bring this home with what this looks like in real life, okay? I'm going to talk about my client, Lori. All right. So Lori was skipping breakfast, working out fasted every morning. By 2 p.m., she was exhausted, craving sugar, and then would beat herself up for failing and not being able to stick with the plan. We shifted her to a very protein-rich breakfast that she was eating around 8 a.m. And then we wrapped up her dinner by 6:30 p.m. And within 2 weeks, her energy was completely stabilized, her cravings had dropped off, and she started losing belly fat without changing any calories. Just those simple little tweaks. Another client I want to mention is Michelle. She was in menopause, sleeping really shitty, doing one meal a day, and her stress hormones were out the roof. Okay. So we moved her to 3 meals, which took a little bit of time to get used to, obviously going from 1 to 3, with a 12-hour overnight fasting. And she started to feel a lot calmer and really sleeping deep and getting that good restorative REM sleep. And her belly inflammation started dropping, like distended tummy, like gone just from these little changes. And both of these women thought fasting harder was the answer, but in reality, they needed more balance, more nourishment, and more structure. So here's the takeaway. You don't need to earn your food, okay? You need to fuel your metabolism in a way that aligns with your individual hormones. Now, I want to go a little deeper into something that gets overlooked a lot, okay? And I get this question quite often too, but how do you time your meals around your workouts? Okay, well, tell me in the chat, who usually trains fasted? Like nothing in your tummy at all. Maybe it's coffee, maybe it's an energy drink, maybe nothing at all. Tell me in the chat. Anybody work out fasted? This is where I want to slow down for a minute, because this one shift can completely change your results. When you train fasted, your body doesn't have any glucose available for energy. So it releases cortisol and adrenaline to keep your blood sugar up, okay? So that's your body saying, okay, we've got to somehow make some fuel. And then when this becomes a habit, especially in perimenopause, that constant stress signal can push you further into that fight or flight mode. And so here's what that means for you. Cortisol stays elevated longer, your estrogen and your progesterone, which are already fluctuating, become even more imbalanced. You burn through muscle tissue faster, and your blood sugar becomes less stable throughout the day. And remember, muscle is your metabolism. So if you're not feeding your body around your workouts, you're making it harder to build and protect the very tissue that keeps our metabolism high. So let's walk through like what you should do instead, okay? So pre-workout, fuel for your hormones. You don't need a full meal before training, okay? I get like not wanting to have that full tummy when we're about to work out, right? But your body does need something to lower the stress hormones and prepare your muscles. So aim for a protein and carbohydrate combination about 60 to 90 minutes before your workout. Okay, so some examples could be Greek yogurt with berries, maybe a small protein smoothie with a banana, maybe it's eggs and a slice of whole grain toast, or I love rice cakes with almond butter and like a half a scoop of protein. Mix it all in together. So this combo keeps your blood sugar steady and it tells your body like we're safe. We have fuel. We can focus on performance in our workout instead of just survival, right? So if you train early in the morning and can't stomach food, even 10 to 15 grams of protein and a few bites of carbs, so think like half a shake or some yogurt, can really help reduce those cortisol spikes. So when you eat a little before training, that insulin gently rises, which helps you to kind of buffer cortisol and it keeps estrogen from plummeting. And that means your body stays in like fat burning zone, not a stress induced muscle burning one. Okay. So let's talk post workout, how we recover and reset. So within 30 to 60 minutes after strength training, have a balanced meal or shake with protein and carbs. So this is going to help you refuel those glycogen stores. Okay, so that's glycogen stores are your muscle's fuel. It's going to lower your cortisol, kickstart your repair and your growth, and stabilize your blood sugar for the rest of the day. So some good examples might be chicken or salmon with rice and vegetables. Again, maybe a protein smoothie with fruit and oats. Oatmeal with protein powder mixed in, or tuna on rice cakes. So shoot for roughly 25 to 30 grams of protein and about 25 to 40 grams of carbs, depending on your goals and your body size. Okay, so if you train later in the evening, try to finish your post-workout meal at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Your nervous system needs that window to calm down and prepare for sleep. Otherwise, you might notice more restless nights or that like wired but tired feeling. And if late workouts are your only option, just add a small calming snack like cottage cheese with berries or Greek yogurt and a few almonds before bed to help steady that blood sugar overnight. So why does this matter in perimenopause? Well, again, estrogen plays a major role in that insulin sensitivity, the muscle repair and recovery. So as estrogen declines, your ability to process carbs efficiently, it drops, except right after training. And that's when your muscles are most insulin sensitive and ready to soak up those nutrients. So if you're avoiding carbs after a workout because you're scared they're going to ruin your progress, you're actually missing the most hormonally optimal time to eat them. Okay. So here's what a balanced training week might look like. Okay. So strength days, we want to eat both before and after your workout, prioritizing recovery. Cardio or mobility days, go lighter. Okay, maybe it's just a pre-snack or a small breakfast. And then on your rest days, we want to space protein evenly through your day to help support that ongoing repair. And if you've been under eating for years, this approach will feel like a reset, because it is. You're retraining your metabolism to trust you again. So who's realizing that they might need to feel more strategically around their workouts? Throw it in the chat. Yeah. That's one of the biggest mindset shifts that I teach inside my Embrace Your Strength Academy. We stop starving our bodies and we start supporting them, because food isn't your enemy. It's information for your hormones. All right, before we wrap up, I want to take a few minutes to just connect all the dots, because we covered a lot today. And I know it's easy to walk away thinking, okay, that was great, but where do I even start? So let's quickly walk through what we learned. So we started by talking about why so many women are drawn to fasting, because it sounds simple and freeing. But we learned that fasting doesn't fix a metabolism. It's just temporarily hides symptoms when your hormones are already under stress. Then we dove into your hormonal landscape in perimenopause menopause and how that changes everything. We talked about insulin, your blood sugar manager, how it becomes more sensitive to meal timing. We talked about cortisol, your stress hormone, being overworked when you fast for too long or skip meals. We talked about ghrelin and leptin, which are your hunger and fullness hormones, getting kind of mixed signals when you go long hours without food, and how estrogen and progesterone shifts can make your body less resilient to stress. So fasting feels harder, recovery takes longer, and belly fat shows up even when you're doing everything right. Then we broke down how your circadian rhythm sets the rhythm for your hormones. You learned that eating earlier in the day, when your body is more insulin sensitive, supports your energy, your sleep, and your fat metabolism, while late night eating or skipping breakfast can really disrupt that rhythm. We also unpacked why long fasting windows often backfire, because they raise cortisol, they lower thyroid output, and accelerate muscle loss. And that's critical, because muscle is your metabolism. I will die on a hill on that subject. So we walked through the real research that showed that most fasting benefits come from overall calorie balance, not starvation windows. that short overnight fasts around 12 to 13 hours are the most sustainable for women, and eating with your body's clock is better than fighting against it. Then we applied all that science to real life with those two stories I shared with you about Lori and Michelle, two women who thought that fasting harder was the answer when really their bodies were just asking for more nourishment and consistency. And then finally, we dug into something that hardly anyone teaches you is meal timing around your workouts. And you learn that fasted training spikes cortisol and breaks down muscle, and eating before your workout stabilizes blood sugar and hormones. Refueling after training helps you to rebuild muscle and lower stress. And we also learned how simple fuel timing, not restriction, can completely change your strength and energy results. So drop a comment in the chats if something finally clicked for you today, that we kind of got through some of that information overload, a little bit more clarity around this. Great. Here's what I want you to take away, okay? Your metabolism is not broken. Your body's not fighting you. It's just asking you to support it differently. And when you understand your hormones, meal timing, and recovery all work together, everything starts to make sense. So your workouts feel better, you feel stronger in them, your cravings calm down, and your progress finally sticks around long term. So, and even sitting there thinking, okay, this all makes sense, but where do I fit all this into like the big picture? Like, what's the next step? Okay. Well, I want to leave you with this. If you've been doing all the right things, the workouts, the fasting, the tracking, but still feel stuck, it's that no one's ever taught you how to sync your metabolism with your current body and not your 25-year-old one. And that's exactly why I created my metabolic assessment. And this is not a quiz or a sales pitch. It's a short, personalized way to identify which phase your metabolism is in right now. It helps you to understand what's driving your results or lack of them and where your focus should actually be. So once you take the assessment, I personally reach out to you and invite you to book a free call with me. No obligation, no pressure. Just on that call, we're going to go over your results together, and I'm going to give you a customized next step plan based on your unique situation. So again, no strings attached, just clarity. Just want to be there to help. Because when you finally understand why your body feels the way it does, you stop fighting it and start working with it. So if today's training hit home, if you found yourself nodding along thinking, yeah, this finally makes sense, then take the next step. Complete that metabolic assessment. It only takes a few minutes, and it could be that aha moment that changes how you approach your health and the rest of your life. So I'm going to drop that link in the comments below. And I just want you to know, like, you don't have to do this alone. You just have to start paying attention to what your body's been trying to tell you. So thank you so much for showing up, taking the time for you and for being open to learning about what your body truly needs. I'm so proud of you, here to support you any way that I can, and I can't wait to connect with you after your assessment. Make it a great day.